So in section 7.4, we're going to be looking at some patterns that are created as natural selection occurs in a population. So what patterns can we actually observe? The first thing that we need to keep in mind when we're thinking about natural selection and patterns that we can see in the phenotypes of an organism is that it does happen over generations. For more simple organisms such as mice and the color, the phenotype of the mice, this can be a really quick process and something really easy to observe. However, in organisms that are more complex, that live longer lives like humans, observing these types of patterns could take hundreds of years to see these different generations occurring. So what do we need to know here? Well, looking at this graph, you should be able to observe that this is showing you the original population and that the medium-furred mouse is of the greatest frequency within that population, and the lighter and the darker kind of dwindle down. When you're looking at the mice and looking at these patterns that we see here, there are three key patterns that we need to know. The first is directional. And in directional selection, remember that natural selection is the idea that one phenotype is going to survive or be more fit. One phenotype is more fit. The nature of it, or the factors affecting the organism's population, is going to be changed by that limiting factor or that predator. So here you have that original population graph as well, that same bell curve, and now you have some form of directional selection. And in this case, the directional selection has favored or favors the darker phenotype. So whatever this arrow is representing here, maybe this is a predator, maybe this is the lighter trees have disappeared, and so now we have darker trees where the darker mouse can survive and hide in. In directional selection, it doesn't always mean that the lighter doesn't survive or isn't as fit, but it just means that one phenotype or one on the gradient is chosen over the other. Okay, and really easy to see that in that graph. Then you have what's known as disruptive selection, and again, here you have some sort of factor in the environment that is saying that, hey, the medium phenotype does not survive. And this is known as disruptive selection. Middle phenotype, and we'll just very simply say dies, does not survive, is not as fit. And then in the last one, this is known as stabilizing selection. In stabilizing selection, this is when both of the ends don't survive, and only the average survives. Average is favored. Some things or some ways to help you remember this: in directional selection, the population is moving in one direction or the other, in this case towards the darker colored mouse. In disruptive selection, it's almost like you're disrupting or breaking up the middle of a crowd. So your selecting force is going to get rid of that middle group. And then in stabilizing selection, if I always think of a table being stable, you want to have more centered, more balanced legs on the table to help support that table, help it be more stable. Right here, just as a reminder, these arrows are representing selecting forces or selecting force. This could be environmental, like the landscape itself. This could be predators. This could even be prey, depending on what it is. So maybe it's better that you're faster than others. moving along with natural selection and the idea of evolution, there are some relationships that we need to know of that actually affect natural selection. So other natural selection patterns are based on relationships. One type is known as coevolution. Co means together. And so this is when you have two species that have a relationship that, we'll say, their relationship impacts each other. The example here is this picture. And in the example you have actually a hummingbird. I know this picture is pretty dark, but you have a hummingbird. And actually it's this picture, sorry about that. You have a hummingbird, and the hummingbird can see red. Therefore, the red flowers are being affected by the hummingbird, right? And so the red flowers have kind of co-evolved, and what's actually happened is they have become very narrow and long. The flowers themselves have become very narrow and long. And what does that mean? Well, that means for the bird, the beaks are longer. And this is selected for because of the flower. So as the flowers get longer and longer, the hummingbird's beak has gotten longer and longer as well. Other relationships that we see are predator-prey relationships. Basically, this is an increase in pressure. In the predator-prey relationship, maybe the prey is better camouflaged. Better camouflage. That's going to cause the predator to maybe need to be faster in order to actually catch the prey before it's able to hide. When we talk about competition between organisms of the same species, this is to find food, mates, and even space. We have the idea of, the next idea is symbiosis, and these are permanent relationships. Things that can actually affect coevolution or affect patterns in the relationship. And affect organisms in this relationship. For example, in mutualism is a plus relationship. This is where both organisms benefit. Then you have a commensalistic relationship. Commensalism is a +0 relationship where one organism benefits and the other, it doesn't really matter. And then you also have parasitism, which is a +- relationship. One benefits and the other does not. When we're talking about coevolution and natural selection occurring, mutualism and parasitism are usually easy examples for you guys to be able to find. However, commensalism, this +0 business, is not going to be an easy example of coevolution. Because think about it. If only one guy benefits, but the other does not, well, what's the benefit? Okay, there is none. So we're not really going to have many commensalistic relationships that are going to lead to coevolution. However, in mutualism, when both are benefiting, this could be something that helps them even more. Your zebra and your ostrich, sometimes live side by side. This is beneficial to them. One can see better and one can hear better, and this helps them both move away from a predator. In a parasitic relationship, one is gaining food or nutrients usually, and the other is actually being adversely affected. So they're both going to try to push each other, create some pressure in each other, that pressure, and cause some changes there. Pollinators are also another very good example, because the animal can be attracted to the plant, then as it travels, it's going to spread the pollen. Okay, this is going to help plants reproduce. And really, we're spreading the male gamete. On your notes, if you open back up the file, you'll actually be able to see two examples of coevolution, two real-life examples of coevolution. So make sure you take a few minutes to watch those two examples. Make sure you finish up your note cards and finish answering the rest of the questions on this unit.